Okay, so we are recording. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. This is January 11th. Yeah, 11th. And this is the APAC friendly object storage working group meeting. The first one of the, is it? No, it's not the first one. It's the first one of new year for the APAC friendly, but not the first one in general. So I would like to thank Matthias and Jason as well for running the meetings where I was on PTO. And so let's get started. So there are no specific agenda items for today. I would like to check on the status and the roadmap, but more importantly, the timeline of the working group, because on the original plan, the working group is supposed to be completed by the end of this month. And the last time we were, last time I was here, so it's 3 weeks ago, we're kind of on this point where we acknowledged the desire to work on a, say, more long-term solution for the problem itself, and not just to stop at the first, let's say, quick solution that can just help us to solve some of the pain points. So
Don't
maybe
we need actually both? Isn't it like a consensus that we want a short-term solution and a blueprint that will describe a long-term vision?
Yeah.
Because I think like right now, today, we don't fully have both. We have something in both areas, but there's no like a solid short-term and long-term plan yet.
Yeah, my point was about the timeline, that if we take this last month that we have, maybe if we focus on, say, the short-term solution, we can have it done by being not done the solution, but well defined by the end of the month. But this is not the desire of the working group members, because we want to do both things as well. So my point was more about considering an extension or things like that, so that we can keep both efforts running. So that's the thing. On that topic, though, I have to mention that I will be on parental leave at the end of this month for 2 months. So if we continue that route, we need some facilitator that can cover me on this period. And yeah, this is just an information for you. So yeah, this was my main point that I didn't wrote in the agenda, so I'm going to put it right here before Gregor's point. So Gregor's, if someone wants to discuss this, otherwise we can move to Gregor's point.
Yeah, I think like back to your point, are we still going to have at least one meeting before you go on the parental leave? So perhaps, we will be able to find a volunteer by then. I can also talk to my manager to see if there is what the expectations are around my future capacity, and perhaps I can help here. But if there is someone who would like to take it over from Malaysia for the next 2 months, that yeah, let's encourage everyone to double check with their managers, and perhaps we can talk about that in the next week.
Thank you, Gregor.
Okay, so let's move to my next point. So some time ago, I created this Google spreadsheet about possible solutions and scoring. We kind of were not able to actually describe solutions, possible long-term solutions, so we have not scored them yet, because we we don't know what they might be. So the question is whether we actually want to document possible long-term solutions, and how do we want to approach that topic. Yeah, to choose the solution that we'll describe in the blueprint.
Okay, so I was thinking about this last year. Sounds weird, but yeah, it was last year. So I do agree that that effort requires a better definition of the solutions themselves. So this is something. I mean, it's really hard to score something if there's no a concrete plan for it. On the other hand, I think that from 0 to 10 is really a wide spectrum of values. It's really different. I mean, how can you find the difference between a 6-level solution compared to a 5 or a 4? So shrinking something in the realm of 0 to 5 or even less maybe kind of help, because it's easier to think about. I think that I wrote something in the chat. Let me quickly find this. Something like it makes things worse. Something like maybe 3 is the middle line, would say neither worse nor better than the current status, and then you kind of have 2 above and 2 below, something like introducing technical debt or make things considerably worse. So this is going to be 2 and 1. And on the other hand, you had improve something and just kind of a desired solution, long-term desired solution for the specific criteria. So it's kind of easier to compare them.
So I think there's no huge difference between from 0 to 10 or from 1 to 6 or 1 to 5. It's more like, what we agree the number means.
Yeah,
what is
correct.
kind of more important is to kind of focus on scoring the potential a given solution has instead of concrete details, because they do not exist yet. And that's the whole point of the architectural evolution and architecture evolution and blueprints we are writing. It's a vision, and we want to kind of score the vision, not a concrete solution, because the concrete solution will be only known after it's implemented. Even one day before someone wants to merge something, like there can be significant changes in the code, and basically it's you never know what you will end up with until you actually build that. And that's the whole point of the iteration, to learn from previous step, to incorporate feedback into the next one. So yeah, for me it's like not a huge difference between 0-10 and 1-5, but if 1-5 is or 1-6 is easier, or 0-6 or 0-5, like that's fine. I think what we are missing here is a couple of visions of the future. And
sorry to interject, but I think before we get carried away in the minutiae of the exact rubric that we're going to use, my problem with this as it stands, and I'm not sure how others feel about this, I couldn't even begin to score this because I haven't worked with object storage pretty much at all. And if I go to these points, I mean, with the comments added, I have a vague idea of what it means, but I couldn't know like what the impact would be, or how complex it would be to implement, if that is the question. So I don't even know, like, are we suggesting that we all score this, everyone on the group? Because I just have no idea what most of this even means. I think this is one point of feedback. And another one I would have, I think I mentioned it last time, Gregos, when it was just the 2 of us, no one else was there. What I miss in this picture is a sense of linearity. Like this is like more than 20, this is like 25 items. I have no idea how they relate to each other. Like, is this something that we would all have to do? Or is there like a subset of things that we could do, to like move this project ahead? I think what I would, maybe at the next exercise before we start scoring, we should identify, I could imagine, maybe I'm wrong, like you correct me, but like if I could imagine there are some items, 2 or 3, that absolutely must happen for other items on this list to even be feasible, right? So I can't imagine that all of these are entirely self-contained. So I'm just wondering, would it make sense to have more of like a tree-based approach first, which says like, I'm just like, this might be wrong. I'm just for the sake of example, maybe we need to look at replacing carry away first before we look at items, X, Y, and Z, right? And that to me would already kind of update any sort of scoring anyway, because it means we just have to do it, right? And it's like the reasonable next step to do. And then we can kind of linearize this, right? We can then say, okay, well, if it enables X, Y, and Z, we can score those and then kind of order them by score. So for me, like, there's just not enough structure right now to even make any sensible decision of what to pick up next.
So that's a great feedback, and I'm thinking about how can we actually improve the Google Doc to make it easier to score these things. I wonder if perhaps the boring solution here would be to divide the scoring items into 3 groups: things that need to happen, things that like most likely should happen, and things that like are kind of nice to haves. And perhaps we could assign a different way to scores in the most important things group, and perhaps this would help. Mattia, do you think that would make things easier?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, especially like what do we think are the must-haves? Because those would naturally like be good short-term goals already, right? And then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, that's a great feedback.
On the other question that you had, Matthias, about the lack of knowledge of understanding, I think the point number 4 for Vlad is a great answer to that. I was going to suggest kind of the same thing, but I will let Vlad speak his thought.
Yeah, when we were doing pages re-architecture, we just had 2 competing proposals, one from Camille and one from Jakob. We implemented very different ideas, and it was much easier to compare things and even, I don't know, understand them when you can just look at the code. You can run it, even if it's not fully functional, it's not able to migrate anything. So yeah, what do you think if we just document some of the ideas, maybe find people who can be responsible? Like if someone is super passionate about some concrete ideas, then they can take some time to implement a very quick and dirty POC, and then we can just compare them, and it will make the discussion much more focused, and we won't just discuss some random numbers. We will actually see how it can work.
I think that's a great idea as well. We can talk about a couple of solutions, and once we have them documented briefly somewhere, we can actually create POC for every of them to make it a bit more tangible what the solution means and how it can be implemented. Of course, it will be very short, dirty, and it won't work, but the point here is to make it easier for people to understand what the intent is.
Yeah, I want to double down on this, reporting something that Camille told me about the sharding effort. So I will share his feedback on how they did the thing. So they had competing solution like in the pages situation, and some of them were looking good on paper, and someone that had some kind of there were some kind of trade-offs, right? But then when they started doing the POC, the one looking good on papers were kind of a nightmare to implement. So they were just kind of touching everything. It was really hard to develop or to maintain. So even though on paper something looks better, then they say, no, this is kind of takes years to complete. And there's no iterative or tangible benefits in between. It's kind of a flag day situation where it's not working until it's working, and you get that point where things are working 2 years down the pipeline, right? So this is gonna never happen. But this was not clear by looking at how the architecture should work. So I would say that, yeah, if we have some kind of, I will use my example, the carrier wave replacement as an example. So that one is absolutely not complete, but shows you some kind of a flow. So how does it work when something comes into the product, and how things are, what are the actors, the components in this type of interaction, and how they are supposed to behave, right? So I think that one is well defined to the point that someone can actually start working on a POC and coming back with questions. So this can't work, or how do we think this situation should be handled? And so if we can have something like that for other proposals, then we can actually do what Gregor was suggesting, right? So we have a big pictures of what we think is a good solution, and then we start crunching some of the details to figure out if it's actually feasible.
I agree. So it will be like an overview description, then a link to a POC where everyone could actually go and see what the description means.
I was also wondering, are there any items already on this list so that we can think of that we would kind of want to do anyway, like regardless of the ultimate approach that we take? Let's just assume we have two kind of competing visions that would at some point go in a different direction. But I'm wondering, because I remember also going back to what are we kind of trying to solve for, there was a lot of points around like the developer ergonomics, and it's like really hard right now to implement a new kind of upload. Some technical debt as well. And I saw there's some points around libraries that we use like fog. I mean, are there like general cleanup tasks where we can say, these are just no-brainers, we should just do them, like regardless of this or that architectural approach? I mean, because like approaching it this way as well might just get some of that, some of these like blockers out of the way. I don't know if they're blockers necessarily, but just, you know, do some cleanup work. That these are usually like good short-term goals maybe as well.
Things tends to be really badly coupled in the way things are implemented right now, which is why one of the things was about if we have a short-term solution type of goal, and so that we have, so it's kind of the cleanup you're suggesting, but the point is that I can't find a low-hanging fruits on this situation. And so there are kind of, we need a bit of a more organic solution to get to a point where we can evolve it into something completely new, future-proof, or things like that. But I mean, this is my view on my experience and exposure on this, because they are all badly coupled in terms of, we don't have a generic object storage place, so you can't direct upload everything that is coming through, as well as, because it's not implemented in workers, but there's not even a place to put all those information. And then you have the carrier wave, which is the default implementation that we have. So on Rails side, if you're gonna add more, say you default everything, so you decide to work on defaulting everything to object storage direct upload, then you are kind of making bigger the amount of things that you have to migrate off carrier wave, because carrier wave, they are the first thing you have. So that's the type of situation. But probably looking closely, we can try to identify something that is kind of a natural first step. But yeah, I'm afraid this is kind of more than one single step.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's good feedback.
Okay. So if there are no other items, we are almost at time, but I think it was a great conversation today. So I will try to wrap things up and just, and so that we can think about this, we can think about who can continue this work in my absence. I had, before the break, I had a conversation with Stan Hu as well, who was kind of asking if he's willing to mentor whoever decide to continue working on this, because he obviously had a lot of experience on this topic as well. So he agreed that he can help and mentor who wants to continue on this effort. So if someone wants to volunteer, you will not be alone. Okay, so that's an important message that I wanted to pass on. So thank you, everyone. I will leave you to the rest of your days or evening, and see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.